In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how we can program some grooves with the snare drum either a little bit behind or a little bit ahead of the click, and then have a little playlist which will switch between those things so we can really hear how that sounds in context. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a groove in Metronome 1 by changing the rhythm, clear all, and I'll add a bar of eighth notes. And then I'll add a groove to this, so we'll tap again and change sounds. I'll have a hi-hat on line 1, and on line 2 we'll just have a kick, rest, snare, rest. So this is the groove that we're going to work with. And then what I want to do is basically play everything apart from the backbeat in Metronome 1 and just the backbeat in Metronome 2. So the way I'm going to do that is add accents to this pattern. So I'll tap, choose change accents, and I'll accent everything apart from beats 2 and 4. So accent, accent, rest, accent. And you can see that's been applied so that the non-accent lines up with the snare hit. And then I'll hit done. Now if we play this, I can change this accent fader. If it's at the bottom, we hear everything. If it's at the top, we don't hear the backbeat. So that's the starting point. And I'm going to go ahead and save this as groove 1. Then what I want to do is copy this and paste it into Metronome 2. So in order to do that, we tap on the preset name and choose copy preset. And that copies everything about this into the PolyNome clipboard. And then we can tap on Metronome 2 and choose show paste options. I want to paste the contents of Metronome 1 into Metronome 2, and I want to paste everything in there. So I hit select all, and that selects everything. And we're going to paste that. And then you'll see we have the same thing in Metronome 2 as in Metronome 1. And finally, what I want to do is invert the accents here so we're only accenting the backbeat. So I'll tap, choose change accents, and then as a shortcut here, I can tap and hold on the accents and choose invert accents. So now if I put the accent fader all the way up, which it is, we'll hear the whole groove, but the backbeat is now being played in Metronome 2. Okay, so that's our starting point. I'm going to save the changes. And now what I'm going to do is add a delay to both of these metronomes. And you do that with these faders down here. So you'll note that if I play this and add a delay to Metronome 2, that the snare drum gets laid back. At 100%, it's delayed by a 16th note. Now what I want to be able to do is move the snare drum late or early. So I'm going to tap on the delay label and I'm going to choose an eighth note as the maximum delay. And then I'm going to link these two faders by tapping where it says off. So now we've got link on. And I'm going to set both of these at 50%. So when we're close, we can tap and hold above and it jumps to 50%. And the reason I've done this is that these are now delayed by a 16th note. So I can actually bring in the E fader and we'll hear this as if it's on the beat. So there we have a click. And now we can move this whole groove a little bit ahead of the click by pulling the faders down. And I can tap below to do this in 1% steps. So now our groove is a little bit before the click. And then I can go the other way. And now the groove is a little bit behind the click. And if you move these up and down, it sounds like a very poor drummer. So let's go ahead and set these at 50%. So now what we have is a groove that is perfectly on the beat. So I'm going to save this as groove on. And then I am going to move the snare a little bit early by pulling this fader down, let's say 4%. Oops. I want to turn link off and just pull the snare drum fader down by 4%. So I'll save as early snare, and then I'll move the fader 4% above and save this as late snare. So you can hear with the click that it's a little bit late. So then what I'm going to do is add those to a playlist. So I will tap the multi-select button and we'll start with groove on, and then we'll have early, and then we'll have late. And I'll tap on the actions button and add the presets to a playlist. Groove example. Then what I want to do is set these all to play for one loop. So I can click on the playlist time row to do this very quickly. Choose set all reps. 1, done. And then I want it to automatically advance through these. So I'll tap on playlist controls, auto advance on, play when advancing, and playlist looping. So now this will play groove on, and then an early snare, and then a late snare. Okay, so let's say we want to put another groove on in between these. I can hit the add button, add presets to playlist, and I'll add another copy of groove on in there. So now we have on, early, on, late. And we need to set this to 1 rep as well. So I'll tap on the gear icon, choose 1 repeat. And then finally, we might want to hear what this sounds like without the click. So I'm going to play this from the main page, and I'm going to mute the E fader for each of these. And when you make volume changes, you don't need to save, so we can just do this as they go by. So now we get to hear on, early snare, back on, late snare. So you can play around with those just to hear how it sounds if the snare's a little bit early or a little bit late, and you can experiment with how much you can move it ahead of the beat or behind before it sounds wrong. You can also play with the swing faders if you want to add a bit of a lilt to the groove. So I'll link these faders, and I'm going to escape out of the playlist. So I'll tap where it says play once. That turns the playlist off. And now we're just looping this single preset. So I'll turn this on, and then I'll start to add a little bit of swing. So you can hear just a bit of swing there. We take it up more. It starts to sound like a shuffle around 20%. And there's your triplet swing. Keep going. That's a dotted note swing, and you can take it all the way up. And if you tap and hold below the faders, it jumps to 66%, and then 50%, and then 33%, which are the useful places, and then back down. So that's a nice way you can experiment with swing and moving the backbeat in PolyNome.